My name is Laura Sims. I am a woman storyteller. I am delighted to emcee the virtual part of the 4th Annual Women's International Storytelling Festival. There is a very old story from India about a woman who had a story that she never told and a song that she never sang, and the consequences were dire. This Women's Festival is a powerful antidote. It is a great, joyful celebration. I want to thank all of you who will be watching in person in Fairfax City. We appreciate all of you, but I want to thank first and foremost Jessica for conjuring up this glorious festival, to all the volunteers, sponsors, storytellers, and you, the audience. We are thrilled to be hosting this event. The virtual showcase is a way to bring more storytellers to you in your home from around the country. Our storytellers tonight are Ava Abram from Washington State, Rachel Ann Harding from Colorado, Roopa Mohan from California, and Rutherford from Oregon, and Nancy Wang from California and Washington State. Eva Abram is a storyteller, public speaker, and award-winning actress. She tells engaging traditional tales and literary stories with masterful use of gesture and physical expression. She loves sharing stories that leave audience with a laugh, a gem of wisdom, or something to ponder. She is the 2022 recipient of the National Storytelling Network's J.J. Renault Emerging Artist Award. Take it away, Eva.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me here. I am so pleased to be a part of this celebration of women and all kinds of women, all kinds of activities. You know, women have been making all kinds of achievements and doing all sorts of wonderful things since the beginning of time. And we celebrate those women, and we know a lot of those women. But the majority of women who do wonderful things for themselves, each other, humanity, the majority of women are not known. They're just everyday women, you know, that do wonderful things. And I want to celebrate those women. And with this story by Langston Hughes, she was a large woman, and she carried a great big pocketbook with everything in it but the kitchen sink. If you need some first aid stuff, she got it. You need some pencil, paper, notebook, she got that. You need something to read? Oh, she got that too. And this great big pocketbook had a long strap she wore it across her shoulder. Well, it was about 11 o'clock at night when she was coming home from work, when a young man ran up behind her and snatched her pocketbook. His plan was to get it and keep on going, but the strap broke and he ended up flat on his back with his legs all up in the air. The large woman went over to him and she kicked him in the behind. Then she grabbed him by his shirt, picked him up and shook him until his teeth rattled. Now you pick up my pocketbook and give it here. She didn't turn him loose. She let him bend down just enough to get it. Then she said, "Ain't you ashamed of yourself?" "Yes, ma'am." "What did you do that for?" "Well, I didn't mean to." "You're a lie." Now, by this time, the people who had been walking by, well, they started to stop and listen and see what's going on. So the woman said, now, if I turn you loose, you gonna run? Yes, ma'am. Then I ain't gonna turn you loose. Your face sure is dirty. Ain't nobody at home to tell you to wash your face? No, ma'am. Well, it'll get washed this evening. That's the least I can do. And she started walking on home, dragging the boy behind her. He was about 14, 15 years old, real thin, wearing toe-up tennis shoes and blue jeans. I wish you were my son. I bet I'd teach you right from wrong. At least I can get that face washed. Are you hungry? I just want you to turn me loose. She stopped. Was I bothering you when I turned that corner? No, ma'am. Yet you decided to put yourself in contact with me. And if you think that contact ain't gonna last a while, then you got another thought coming. When I finish with you, oh, you are going to remember Mrs. Luella Bates Washington Jones. Ooh, sweat popped up all on the boy's forehead. He tried to wriggle to get away. She flipped him around, put him in a half Nelson, and kept on going. Now, when she got to her boarding house, she pulled him on up the steps, went through the front door, and down the hall, opened her door, and walked on in, dragged him into the middle of the room. She said, here I am, trying to get home to get me something to eat. Well, maybe you ain't had your supper yet either, have you? Well, ma'am, ain't nobody in my house. Oh, then we'll eat, because I believe you're hungry. Got to be to try to snatch my pocketbook. Well, I just wanted some new shoes. You didn't have to try to snatch my pocketbook to get no new shoes. All you had to do was ask. Ma'am. She just looked at her. Now, they were standing in the middle of the room. And she said, what is your name? Roger. Well, Roger, you going over there to that sink and you wash your face. And she finally let him go. Now, he knew he wasn't alone in this place with her. He could hear the neighbors laughing and talking, watching TV, and some of them even had their doors open. So he didn't feel afraid. She finally let him go and she went on to the closet. He went over to the sink and looked at the open door. Looked at the sink, looked at that door, and he turned the water on. She said, let that water run till it got warm. Here's a towel. You gonna take me to jail? Now, with that dirty face, I wouldn't take you nowhere. Trying to get home to get something to eat. And you gonna try to snatch my pocketbook. Wanting to get some shoes. Well, you didn't have to snatch my pocketbook to get no shoes. You just had to ask. And there he was with water dripping down his face. He didn't know what to do, so he dried his face and looked around and dried it again, waiting to wonder what to do next. And the woman, she just sat there on the daybed. Looked like she had gone somewhere in her mind. Finally, she said, I was young once. I wanted things that I could not get. And he looked at her like, Roger, you thought I was going to say but I didn't snatch nobody's pocketbook. It's not what I was going to say. Oh, I've done some things which I will not tell you. Neither tell God if you didn't already know. Just sit down. Sit down while I fix us something to eat. Better yet, run that comb through your hair, make yourself look presentable. And she went around that a screen where she kept the icebox and the hot plate. She didn't watch that boy, and she didn't watch her pocketbook. There it was laying right there on the daybed. He could get it and run out that door. But Roger wanted her to trust him now. So he made sure he stood in a place in the room where she could see him out of the corner of her eye if she wanted to. He said, you need somebody to go to the store, get some milk or something? No, I don't believe I do. I was just gonna make some hot cocoa with this canned milk I got here. Oh, that'd be fine, that'd be fine. And so she went round that screen, and she pulled out some leftover lima beans and ham, heated that up and put it on the table along with the hot cocoa. And as they sat there eating, she didn't ask him any questions that might embarrass him. Like, what you doing out this late at night? Where you live? Where your folks at? She didn't say any of that. She just talked about her job at the hotel beauty shop. Oh, all kinds of people come in there. Blondes, redheads, brunettes, Spanish people. And she just enjoyed watching him eat. After he had ate all the lima beans and ham, she cut that boy half of her 10-cent pound cake. Eat some more, son. Eat some more. And when they finished eating, she reached into her bosom and said, now you take this money and buy yourself some shoes. And don't you ever think about trying to snatch my pocketbook, or nobody else's for that matter. Because shoes got by devilish ways will burn your feet. I got to give me some rest now. And she walked him on down the hall to the front door. You behave yourself, son, you hear me? As he walked down the steps, he tried to think of something special to say to show her how much he appreciated what she did for him. When he got to that last step, all he could think to say was, thank you, ma'am. And that was enough. He never saw that woman again. But you better believe in all his years, even as a grandfather, Roger never forgot the wisdom of Mrs. Luella Bates Washington Jones. Thank you.
Thank you, Ava. A story like this is so needed today, a story of feeding someone instead of punishing them or hating them. Thank you. I will never forget that story for the rest of my life. Let me introduce Roopa Mohan. She's a professional storyteller from Walnut Creek, California. When she's not playing grandma, she's crafting stories, braiding in her childhood memories from India. Roopa volunteers as a storyteller and docent at the wonderful Asian Art Museum in San Francisco. She's also on the board of Storytelling Association of California, leads a project to reach underserved schools. She is not busy. Roopa volunteers as a storyteller and a docent at the Asian Art Museum in San Francisco. She is also on the board of Storytelling Association of California, leading a project to reach underserved schools. And we thank her so much for that work. She is contributing stories to Asian American Storytopia on YouTube. And as a new Chautauqua scholar, Roopa portrayed Kasturba Gandhi. I am so happy to share her with you.
Namaste, greetings. Last October, we went back to India after the 3 long COVID years, and it happened to be the time of Diwali, our biggest festival of lights. And we were going home for Diwali after many decades, so I was really excited. The whole city of Chennai was sparkling with fireworks and lamps lit around all the homes. That was the eve of Diwali. The next morning, it was customary for us to get dressed and go and exchange gifts with our relatives and get the blessings of the elderly relatives, like aunties. And I was very excited to do that, but I knew that I would get more than blessings from them. Over the years, even when it was not Diwali, I had been welcomed with remarks like, "Roopa, you are too thin. Is your husband not feeding you? Roopa, you have put on weight. You have filled out. American food must be suiting you. And Roopa, your nose has improved. Did you get a nose job?" Well, we usually laughed it off and realized these were coming from a good place. This year, there was something different. As we entered an 85-year-old aunt's home, a very well-preserved 85-year-old, I must add, she was aghast. "Ayo, what happened to you? You have grown old. You have turned gray." I smiled sheepishly and said, "I'm no spring chicken, auntie. I am getting older. Don't we all turn gray?" But she couldn't get over it. She said, "Roopa, I always thought of you as a very young and beautiful girl. What happened to you?" There was a compliment somewhere there, a retroactive compliment, so I accepted it. But I got to thinking, she isn't saying anything about my husband who had a full head of gray. He was still considered very handsome and distinguished. The feminist in me started questioning that. And I had been thinking about this, especially the last 3 years where I was mostly in front of Zoom. All I had to do was hit the enhance button and I somehow seemed a less gray than what I actually was. And before that, I must confess, I had dabbled with some natural things. I thought I should pay heed to this, the advice that was given to me way back, that I should not, try these artificial colors or shampoos or even blow drying. I had not paid attention to that. And maybe I was paying the price for it now. Well, better late than never. So I had started trying these natural remedies. Of course, first I went to henna from India, that miraculous leaf that is powdered, and then you make a paste of it, and then you dab it on. Yeah, it was cooling and it felt really good, though messy, but I would turn out to be like a carrot head or a red head, and I didn't want that look for myself. So I gave that up and I moved towards another country, Indonesia. My friend suggested a product called Kacha, which also has Ayurvedic origins. This was a pack with 2 different powders. So first I had to make a paste of a brown powder, dab it, soak for a few hours, wash it off. Then green powder, dab, soak, wash off. And then 2 hours, cleaning my bathtub. That was not for me. So I tried then something from South America, another natural product. They said it was twice as expensive as all the other hair colors I was seeing in the grocery store, but I didn't want to penny pinch. And when I tried that, it would wash off in like 2 weeks. What's the point, I thought. And finally, my friend from Bombay suggested indigo. She said all the Bollywood stars are using that. But no, I didn't want to turn into a denim head. So that was it for me. I decided to just embrace my grace and be content. And also, I had some positive reinforcement. My one friend who is surrounded by these very elite women in Bangalore told me that it was considered very middle class there to color your hair. And I should flaunt my salt and pepper like them. I'm not a snob, but it was amusing and I thought it reinforced my resolve. And my sister, who is much younger than me, said, Roopa, all my 40-something friends are going to the beauty parlor trying to get these highlights just like you. Why don't you embrace it, this God-given gift to you? I said, okay, I am going to. No wavering over here. And I went back in time trying to look for some role models. 2000 years ago, right in Tamil Nadu, my state in India, in South India, in fact, there was this young girl who came to be known later as Avayar. Well, legend says that she was a budding poet and a singer and loved to hang out with the saints and sages, singing the praises of the gods. But when she hit puberty, her parents, of course, brought her into the house and said, you better stay here until we find you a groom. No more wandering around. And it is said that she prayed hard to her favorite god, Ganesha, the elephant-faced god with the big flapping ears, the god who grants wishes and gets rid of all obstacles. Well, her prayers were answered. She woke up one morning with a silver head of hair, wrinkles on her face, and even a stoop. And she was ecstatic. Her wishes had been granted. Now she could carry her cane and walk all over the countryside doing whatever she wanted without fearing anyone or anything. And she did create a lot of new poems and songs, and she's a legend and timeless even today. Her contribution to Tamil literature can never be forgotten. That was a wonderful role model for me. But more recently, there was, of course, our Prime Minister, Indira Gandhi. Remember her? She was a big role model when I was growing up in the 1970s. And who can forget her tuft of silver hair that distinguished her from everyone else and made her look so strong and empowered. In fact, she was so popular that we all looked up to her and put her on a pedestal. And it is said that the men in her cabinet literally shuddered and shook in their boots. There could be no one better than Indira Gandhi then, though later she lost her power and was assassinated. But we are not going there. And I thought about it. Well, I kept thinking I was not going to go over to the dark side like many of my friends who were hair shamed in India and came back with dark hair looking like ravens. I did not want that look. So I kind of stuck to it. And I realized I was getting much more respect, especially when I was in India. I would take these autos, the three-wheelers, the rickshaws, that had a driver, and these drivers would drive so recklessly and speed through the traffic. And when I had black hair, I literally held my life in my hands as they drove. But after I turned gray, all I had to say is, please slow down. I am an old woman. And he would slow down right away and said, Amma, yes, I will. And I felt so much safer going through those busy, crazy streets of Chennai. When I came home, it was, I remember, late in the evening, and I had to go to Trader Joe's to pick up groceries. Trader Joe's is a little neighborhood grocery store that is very popular, and it has very cool cashiers, I must say. As I was checking out, this young man with his tattoos and his piercings, unsolicited, pointed to me and said, I like your hair. Yes, he liked my gray, disheveled hair. That was it. That clinched it. And I was going to stick with my salt and pepper and form a little salt and pepper club. Very soon, I noticed other people, especially storytellers, who were like-minded and like-headed, like me. And I loved their company and felt so comfortable with them. But I was looking for some buddies, maybe in showbiz. Hardly anyone in Bollywood. Even the 80-year-old women had raven black hair. But one night I was sitting and watching television, and there he was, right in front of me. Yes, this handsome actor with salt and pepper, just like mine. Well, he was tussling it and also laughing about his age. He was not an ordinary person. Handsome, sexiest man on earth. Can you guess? None other than George Clooney. Well, if you're offended that I'm comparing myself with him, I must tell you he is 3 months younger than me. Yes, and he has 2 young children, and I have a grandkid, but still I could relate to him. And I realized as I was tussling my gray and salt and pepper hair that life can be good after all in the Salt and Pepper Club. By George, life can be good. Thank you.
This was really a woman's story of immense bravery, of letting her hair go gray, and more. Thank you so much, Roopa. Rachel Ann Harding calls herself a traditional storyteller. She is passionate about sharing beautiful folktales, myth, and traditional stories. And she does it with a flair of passion and originality. In 2018, Rachel was a featured storyteller for the Exchange Place at the National Festival in Jonesboro, Tennessee. Remarkably, in 2022, she received the Oracle Award for Regional Excellence. This is the first award she has received since the gold stars she got as a child for picking up her toys. Bravo, Rachel. She's the creator and producer of the popular Story podcast, which I personally love. She showcases traditional storytelling from around the world. Thank you, Rachel, because she believes that fairy tales are for all ages. Let us welcome my beloved friend, Rachel Ann Harding.
Long ago in China, Lily married the man of her dreams and got the mother-in-law of her nightmares. The first evening she stayed with her new family, she decided to make bao buns, soft and fluffy, stuffed with savory meat. She was particularly known for this dish in her own family, and so she was excited to make it for her new one. She made the soft dough. She sautéed the meat with the garlic and the ginger. She stuffed that meat into the soft wrapping, steamed it. Oh, the house smelled amazing. When it was time for dinner, she served some to her husband. He took a bite and the look on his face told her everything she needed to know. Then she served her mother-in-law. Her mother-in-law took a bite. This is bland, like you. I should never have let you marry my son. And that is how their relationship began. Lily did try. She tried her best to be a dutiful and obedient daughter-in-law, but it seemed that whatever she did, her mother-in-law could only criticize. She cleaned the house, and her mother-in-law would find the specks of dirt in every corner. I cleaned a house so much better than this when I was a young bride. Lily would do the laundry, and her mother-in-law would comment, "You take so long to do the laundry, and it always smells musty when you do it." Lily did try. She held her tongue as long as she could until finally she was snapping back. My husband doesn't seem to complain about my housekeeping skills. My husband doesn't seem to complain about how his clothes smell. They were at each other all day long, and it lasted long into the evening as well. Soon Lily's husband was somewhat miserable. Every morning when he would go to work, his mother would lean and whisper in his ear, "Why do you have to leave me with her?" And then he would kiss his wife goodbye, and his wife would say in his other ear, "Why do you have to leave me with her?" One evening, Lily decided to make a special dish, one that she enjoyed making, she enjoyed eating, and she thought she was particularly good at it. She was going to make mapo tofu, a spicy dish with red peppers, pork tofu. She ladled some of that mapo tofu over a fluffy mound of rice and served it to her husband. He took a bite. So delicious. She served it to her mother-in-law, and her mother-in-law took a bite. "It is so spicy! Are you trying to poison me?" And that is when Lily had an idea. The next morning, as the chickens were beginning their patrol around the yard, Lily said goodbye to her mother-in-law and made her way into town. She went to the spice merchant's shop and stepped into the cool interior. The earthy smell of the spices surrounding her. Hanging from rafters were bundles of herbs, and in the middle of the floor were big barrels of salt. Now, behind the counter where the shopkeeper stood, there was a wall of small drawers all set up, and in each drawer there was a different spice that the spice maker could get for you. Lily looked around the store, and she waited until all the customers had gone, and then she went to the counter and she leaned over it. I would like a poison that would kill my mother-in-law." The spice maker did not look shocked or scandalized. He simply nodded. Of course. He turned and he opened up one of those drawers behind him from the wall. He scooped some powder and put it into a bag, rolled up the bag, and slid it across the counter to her. "Now here's what you need to do. Every other day, make a dish, a delicious one that you enjoy eating and serving. And then on your mother-in-law's portion, sprinkle some of this poison. In 6 months, she will be dead." 6 months? Does it have to take that long? "Of course," said the shopkeeper. "Everybody knows you don't get along with her. If she died very quickly, why, we would suspect you. And if they suspected you, they would suspect me. Now, we can't have that. So how about 6 months? Be patient, and then it will just be you and your husband for the rest of your lives." Very well. Do you have any other advice? I do, said the shopkeeper. I think you should treat your mother-in-law as if she were a queen. No, even better, as if she were your own mother. That way, when she passes away, no one will suspect you of any wrongdoing because you treated her so nicely. I know it will be difficult, but perhaps try. Lily paid the shopkeeper and made her way home. That evening, she decided to make a specialty, sweet and sour pork. Now, she laid out the pork. She salted and seasoned and sweetened it. She started to make the broth that it would be in for that dish, and she was adding the ginger when her mother-in-law came through the kitchen. It needs more. More what? More ginger. Now, Lily was just about to snap back, but she remembered the words of the spice seller. Treat her as if she were your own mother. Of course, I will add more ginger. And she did. That evening, she served her husband, and then she made the plate for her mother-in-law and made a liberal sprinkling of that poison that she had been given, and she passed the bowl to her mother-in-law with the sweet smile on her face, which was slightly unnerving. But her mother-in-law took a bite. I see you put more ginger in. It is edible. And that evening, well, it was a bit more pleasant than it had been in quite some time. Every other day, Lily made a fantastic meal, and she served it with a smile and a liberal sprinkling of that poison. And every day, her mother-in-law would snap at her, and she would do her best. She was not always successful, but she did her best to hold her tongue, to smile, to listen. Now, some weeks passed, and Lily was once again working on the laundry when her mother-in-law came out. It takes you so long to do the laundry. Why does it take you so long? Lily turned to say something, but Mother-in-law, perhaps you could show me how you do the laundry. Maybe it will be faster that way. And you know, her mother-in-law did. And whether it was the two of them were doing it together or there was a faster way to do it, the laundry was done quicker. And it seemed that every day after that, when laundry was to be done, her mother-in-law would come and help her. Now, they had been doing this together for a few weeks, and when Lily was scrubbing the clothes and under her breath, she was singing a song that she often sang with her sisters. It was kind of a song that you only sing around women folk, the kind of song that brings a little color to your cheeks and you find very, very funny. And her mother-in-law stopped. Sing that louder. I think I know that song. And so Lily did. She sang the song, and her mother-in-law, I have not heard that song in such a long time. I know another verse. And her mother-in-law sang a verse that was so bawdy. Lily's cheeks blushed completely pink. She had never heard such a raunchy verse. And the two of them began to laugh and laughed all the way through that load of laundry. And when Lily's husband came home, he couldn't figure out why the two of them were laughing, and they would not tell him. And so every other day, Lily made a lovely meal and sprinkled some poison. Some days there was more poison, some days there was less. And then around the 4th month of this process, Lily sprinkled some on the braised trout that she had been making, and she handed it to her mother-in-law. Now, her mother-in-law ate about half the dish, and then she set it down. You know, I'm not feeling well. I think I'll go lie down. Oh, thought Lily, it's working. It's working. But she didn't feel as happy as she thought she would. That evening, and all through the evening and the night, Lily could hear her mother-in-law in the other room, her breathing somewhat labored, a cough coming to her throat. Now, the next morning, Lily went in to look after her mother-in-law, and she was there flushed with fever, tossing and turning. Don't worry, said Lily. I will make you some soup. And she went in and she made the soup her mother always made her, with shiitake mushrooms and wood ear mushrooms, some soft tofu so it was easy to swallow, and of course, ginger. She slowly ladled each spoonful into the woman's mouth and put cool cloths on her head day after day. And for some reason, Lily never thought to add a little bit of poison to that soup. She simply tended her mother-in-law. It was a week before her mother-in-law began to feel better. And it was soon evident that she was feeling better, because now Lily had to look after her and the house, and she was run almost ragged week after week as her mother-in-law began to feel better and call after her for this, that, and the other thing. Lily soon again started to add the poison to the dishes. And then came the day. Lily made those dumplings again, those soft, delicious dumplings. And she went to sprinkle the poison on it, and she realized this was the last dose. There was no more poison. Soon her mother-in-law would die. She had the dish of dumplings in her hand, and she was staring at it when she reached out to give it to her mother-in-law, and her hands began to tremble, and the plate slipped from her fingers and broke on the floor. "I'm so sorry, mother-in-law. Let me get you some more." "Oh, no, dear," said her mother-in-law, and she rose to her feet. "You have been working so hard taking care of me in the house. Time for you to sit down. I will serve dinner tonight." And Lily watched as the woman served dinner to the three of them. She could hardly eat the food. She felt so strange inside, and all that night she lay awake listening to the woman's breathing in the next room. The next morning, when the chickens were beginning their patrol around the yard, Lily said goodbye to her mother-in-law and made her way into town. She made her way to the spice shop. She stepped inside that cool interior with the earthy smell. She saw the bundles hanging from the ceilings, but she didn't seem to notice them. No, she was distracted as she waited until all the other customers left. She went straight to the counter. "Please, I need the antidote for the poison. I'm sure you never hear this, but really, I found that she is a kind woman, and I don't want her to die." "Ah," said the shopkeeper. "I'm afraid there is no antidote to the poison." "Because I didn't give you a poison. If I gave a poison to every woman asking to kill her mother-in-law, I would have no customers. What I gave you was a simple spice that tastes good on anything. And more importantly, what you got was time. Time for you to get to know each other. Now go home and cook for your family." Lily did just that. She went home and she made delicious dishes. And between her and her mother-in-law, the food was always good and the laundry was always done.
Thank you, Rachel and Harding. You have redeemed mother-in-laws and daughter-in-laws through your wonderful story that doesn't escape from the dark side, but certainly gives us at the end something to uplift us. Thank you, Rachel. Nancy Wang is a playwright, director, actor, dancer, project manager, co-founder and performer of Ethnotech, an Asian American storytelling theater. She is also the most wonderful friend. As a playwright, her plays of Asian American themes include Leave Me My Dreaming, Asian American Theater Company, Unspeakable Moons, No Theater, Takashi's Dream, which she performed at many festivals. Bittersweet was commissioned by Race Bridges, and Red Altar, which I had the privilege of seeing 3 times, is an immigration story performed throughout the U.S. in festivals and theaters, and now a book and a DVD education project. Nancy is the co-author of A New Pair of Wings, a children's illustrated book. Along with her husband and co-director of Ethnotech, they have received many grants and awards for their performances and their cultural presentations. Nancy and Robert perform all over the world, and they are most proud of performing at the President Clinton and Obama's inaugural celebrations in D.C. Thank you, Nancy. And now, without further ado, the most lovely Nancy Wang.
My mom was something else. No matter who met her, within moments they had only one word for her: feisty. Her word for herself? Tough. That's me, tough. And she would stick out her knobby, bent, arthritic pinky finger as proof. The story we heard over and over was, I was a #1 volleyball player back in college, and it was during a game that this pinky finger got bent backwards at the middle knuckle. What did the coach do? He simply clicked it back in place, sent me right back into the game. Not like today. They take care of you if you have some injury. Back then, you just had to tough it out. That's me, tough. However, inside the privacy of our home, my mom's admirable toughness expressed itself as a hard, angry, and complaining person. For example, when I was 11, I represented our Sunday school on a religious TV program, competing with other youth, answering several questions, the last being, what is this picture about? It was my turn. But for some reason, the picture was a bit blurry. However, if I squinted, it's Jesus at age 13 teaching at the temple. Correct, young lady. I won first place for my church. After we were awarded our medals, I skipped off stage, a big smile on my face, heading toward my mother waiting backstage. But I stopped, like we all hope our car brakes will work when there's danger ahead. My danger? My mom's scowl. Asenia, which means I'm going to kill you. Why did you make your eyes so small? You looked ugly. Turns out I needed glasses. That same year, I remember walking to the bus with her. And there was a wooden crate in the middle of the sidewalk. I didn't see that there was a thick, long nail, sharp, sticking out of the box. That nail scraped my calf, leaving a long, bloody cut. And here's how my tough mom, who, by the way, was a nurse, replied to my crying pain. Aya, now look what you've done. You're gonna have a scar on your leg. Once, decades later, my parents took a trip across country to San Francisco and were able to catch one of my dance concerts. My dear friends came up to my parents afterwards and asked, well, Mr. and Mrs. Wang, what did you think about Nancy's dancing? Without losing a beat, my mom replied, I'm surprised she can still move. My friends slowly turned to me with shock, their faces full of pity for me. I remember being taken aback by their response. It was the first time I realized that, in fact, what I considered normal was actually mean. Why was she that way? According to my mom, she'd be the one punished by her mom if she and her older sister fought. She was the one that had to stay home and babysit her younger siblings, not her older sister or brother. Mom, like me, was the second daughter. In Chinese culture, second daughters are a waste of time to train, to feed, to educate. Was my mom unwelcomed because of that? Also, my grandma coughed up blood the entire pregnancy with my mom. Maybe she blamed my mom for that. As much as I loved my grandma, who was really the best, I saw the kind of face she could give my mom, one of disgust and contempt. But then Mom felt really special with her dad. She was the one who every morning ran to the chicken coop in the back of their home, fetched a warm egg from under a hen, and ever so carefully cupped that egg in her 2 hands like it was, well, an egg, and went to her dad. He would daintily take it from her like it was An egg, fragile, but a gift from his second daughter. He would crack it open on her head, open up the two half shells, and plop the raw egg into his mouth and let it slide down his throat. Then every week, my mom would run over to his big fancy restaurant after her dance class and sit with her dad at the bar and order her usual roast beef. The staff nicknamed her Roast Beef Gladys. She loved that. But not long after, when my mom was 12, her beloved dad slipped or maybe was pushed down the elevator shaft from the 4th floor of his restaurant, falling all the way down to the basement. He did not survive. My grandma now had 8 kids to raise all by herself, without the riches and benefits of a famous and wealthy husband. Within a year, she sent my mom and her older sister to China to be raised by relatives. But despite receiving a modicum of money to care for them, there was China's overwhelming poverty, never enough food to feed their own kids, let alone 2 more. She said it was really hard. But by the time she entered college 5 years later, all we heard about over and over was that those college days in China were the best days of her life. Now that stung our tiny, undeveloped minds. What about us? Duh. Having raised kids myself? Nope, not exactly the best days of your life. As a single woman, my mom had amazing adventures with her classmates. She went on fun trips to see the sights throughout China by bike, train, bus, and even on camel to Mongolia. In college, she competed in track, tennis, baseball, broad jump, shot put, and of course, volleyball with her noble pinky finger. She won lots of medals. Not until her funeral did we find out that she was named one of the top 10 athletes in China. She graduated with a nursing degree and now promised an exciting job with Red Cross. But then, Gladys, you need to come home. It's too dangerous with the Sino-Japanese War getting worse. Anyway, we all think it's time for a family reunion. It was 1937. She agreed to return to Chicago for 1 month only. She was 26 years old. She had spent as much time in China as in America. But fate stepped in. In Chicago, she met my dad. They married, and there was no return to her wonderful life in China. My dad was like her own dad, charismatic, successful, a public figure, well respected. When they married, he was promoted from vice consul to consul general of China, and they moved from Chicago to New Orleans, where he was stationed. But unlike her dad, her husband wasn't wealthy. Mom had grown up in a mansion with a maid, a cook, a chauffeur, even a butler. Instead, she became those jobs. It was pre-World War II with the Japanese invasion, then World War II, and then post-World War II. China was broken and broke. Money always came late, if at all. And when it came, not much of it. Often the money Dad got, he donated to an organization or a poor family. My mom would mutter under her breath, "What about our poor family?" And so it fell upon her to make ends meet. While Dad got to dedicate himself to his career as a diplomat, a social worker, a community worker, and a brilliant orator, she was raising 4 children, taking care of the house, the shopping, cooking, and worked the night shift as a nurse, the only shift they would give her because she wasn't white. This was the South. With all her frustrations, her anger brimmed at all her edges. While us kids had our brilliant and kind dad high up on a pedestal, Mom became the witch. She hated that we adored our dad. But Did I realize how much she did for us? Did I understand marital relationships? Did I get that Dad was an intellectual and lived in his head? Mom was an athlete. She was in her body. Within their first year of marriage, Mom said she lost 30 pounds. Someone said to me that behind every great man is a lonely woman. In the land of tradition, China, she had found her freedom. In the land of the free America, she had lost it. So why am I telling you about my relationship with my mom? Because hope for a good mother-daughter relationship never dies. 3 years after my father died, my mother at age 91 chose to live with me and my family. She chose me out of all of us Sims. I won. Did she like me best? Ooh, we would finally have a relationship like the ones on television, like in the Donna Reed show and Father Knows Best. I would be able to do things for her and she would be able to thank me. I would tell her I love you and she would reciprocate. I would spend hours talking with her, both of us sharing our thoughts and feelings with mutual respect. We'd go shopping together. We'd cook together. We'd laugh together. And she would be a wonderful grandmother to my kids. And remember how she always talked about the best years of her life was in China? Now that would be different. That would change. Did I mention 10 years of my own therapy was not enough? She moved into the gorgeous Victorian flat below us, with the high ceilings, the chandeliers, the beautiful woodwork, fireplaces with carved mantels, brand new wall-to-wall plush carpeting I put in all 5 rooms. It's too old. It's too big. Nothing was right. Soon she demanded a new stove, a new refrigerator, a new dryer, a better washing machine, a better kitchen sink. Who was I to say no to my mother? One time, my mother was thanking my older sister for traveling all the way from the East Coast to attend the huge party I organized for her. So I said, Mom, you can thank me too for putting this huge celebration together. Mom stood with her arms crossed over her belly and with that scowl of hers. Why should I thank you? Isn't that what daughters are supposed to do for their mothers? Yeah, and you can still thank me. Thank you. Now you happy? I could only nod and laugh. Maybe those 10 years of therapy were helping me after all. Then one late afternoon, after 6 years living with us, she was not answering her phone all day. I ran down the stairs. Her place was dark. I found her standing by her ironing board. Mom, are you okay? I'm so cold. I can't get warm. She smelled funny. She had soiled herself. After cleaning her up in a warm bath, I took her to the emergency room. As we were sitting there waiting for the doctor, she in a wheelchair and me on another chair, she sat staring out in space. Mom, what are you thinking about? Oh, I was just thinking about what a happy childhood I had. I nearly fell off my chair. I only heard her complain how unhappy she was growing up in Chicago. Like what? I remember every summer going to Paw Paw Lake in Wisconsin with the family. We'd be able to walk all the way to the middle of the lake and the water would still only come up to our waists. What else do you remember? Us kids used to catch little turtles and toads and have races with them. And I remember running down between a row of corn stalks in the cornfield, running with my mom and dad, strolling and holding hands. Wow, what happened? When it was confirmed that she had a heart attack, but only 20% of her heart muscle was damaged, I wondered if that 20% that had died had held all her hurt and bitterness, her disappointing marriage, and her accumulated sadness over her lifetime. Because after that, everything changed. Mom became a sweetheart for the 6 months she survived. She was soft, kind, funny, patient. And she said thank you a lot. One time we were playing mahjong with her. I couldn't decide my next move, which tile to throw out. And with a deadpan face, she remarked, "What are you waiting for? The second coming?" Once the caretaker told me that my mother told her that she loved her. My mother telling someone she loved her? We never heard those words uttered. Finally, she was confined to a wheelchair, hooked to oxygen tubes. She died at home as she wanted. Later, as I was going through her things, I found a note she had written and had read to me during our New Year Eve's ritual, just months before her heart attack. But somehow I hadn't remembered it. This is what she wrote. Today is the last day of 2007 in San Francisco, the birthplace of my mother. Yokeland. It has been quite an experience living independently in a first floor apartment. It has been great as I manage my life as I please. I go to bed whenever I want and also rise accordingly. After breakfast, I may roam out to the neighborhood, go to a thrift shop on 20th and Mission to look and shop. If I find anything interesting, which I generally do, may go on to grocery stores if necessary. Nothing like buying something, and then my little cart gets full. I do enjoy my freedom to do as I wish. All I want is to maintain my independence and mobility. Freedom to do as I wish, independence and mobility, like in China, which she had given up marrying my father and having us children. That caricature of my mom formed in my long ago child's mind that never grew up with me over the years, melted away. With my own bitterness about my mom released, I started remembering how she would stay up all night to alter a prom dress for me. And I had 5 proms with 5 different guys at 5 different high schools. She would make us Easter outfits, Mardi Gras costumes. Certainly she was the one that made Christmas and Santa Claus a joy for all us kids. She arranged scholarships for private summer camps. She put us all through college. I remember seeing her for the first time without teeth. I was shocked. I asked her why she had no teeth. Her response, "You kids needed the dentist." She paid for braces for me and she went without teeth. She didn't let her sadness or loneliness abandon us. Like the Chinese before her, she showed her love through sacrifice. Hugging and praising doesn't pay your college education. Sacrifice does. That's Chinese love. But as a 5th generation American, what did I know? I never knew that fun-loving, athletic, and well-adventurous, well-liked woman. But when I look back, it was always there. That pioneering, stubborn persistence is what ran her life to accomplish all she did. That toughness, just like our immigrant ancestors sailing towards America had to have as they started a new life with nothing. Well, maybe not with nothing. It is not the tangibles, those things we can see and touch, but the intangibles, like her determination, her fearlessness, the courage to keep living despite the hardships. All my life, I muttered to myself after yet another assault by my mom, I'm never going to be like you when I grow up. Now, maybe I have, but not in the way I thought. Maybe I have the same perseverance, the same feisty generosity of life she possessed, the same toughness. She fed a full life, full of bitterness and sweetness, and that allowed me to have the life I have today. Mom, I'm so sorry for not getting who you were. I now know you were a gift. Your life and your death have given me more than you can imagine. Thank you. I miss you so much.
Whoa, Nancy, what a remarkable story. Begins with such toughness for a little girl. But in the end, to realize who your mother really was, what a gift to all of us. Thank you so much, Nancy. Award-winning storyteller Anne Rutherford is next. Last but definitely not least, she delights audiences nationwide with funny, moving performances, including tales of personal adventure, Pacific Northwest folklore, and prize-winning tall tales. Now be warned. She is also 5-time first place winner of the Northwest Folk Life Liars Contest. Don't believe everything she says, although you'll love everything she says. She's currently telling stories in person and over the ether, hither and yon, often with her husband, storyteller Norman Brecky. Now, listen up and let's welcome Anne Rutherford.
So good to be with you all, even over the ether. This is a story that I wrote several months ago, and it was interesting for me because the first scene of the story came to me in a dream. The girl was already out by the pumps when the old woman came up the coast road. The girl stood there squinting against the setting sun, watching the old woman come closer and closer, pack on her back, stride steady. The wind that always whipped up at that time of the evening was blowing the old woman's wild white hair around like a crazy halo around her face. And the black claws that wrapped all the way around her body were flapping like wings. The woman walked right up to where the girl was standing by the pumps and took off her pack, boom. As it hit the ground, the girl got a whiff of the woman's aroma. It was pungent, hard traveled. The old woman looked up at the sign above the pumps. Ooh, that's cost for a gallon is dear. We don't set the price, the girl could have said, but she didn't. She just waited for what she knew the old woman was going to say next. It's what all the old people said. You know, when I was your age, pumps like this sold gasoline instead of water. But this old woman didn't say that. She was working at the straps of her pack, loosening a big copper cooking pot, flat-bottomed, that she put down on the ground between them. I need to fill that. Ooh, the girl said. That looks like 5-6 gallons. That's gonna cost. Do you have any tokens? No, I don't live in this quadrant. I'm just passing through. The girl looked. Her grandfather had come out of the station, was standing in the shadow of the eaves, watching the exchange. Well, I don't know, the girl said. It's gonna cost, boy, Tell you what, the old woman said. I need the water to put in the pot to make soup. If I make the soup, I'll give you some. Does that seem like a fair trade? Out of the corner of her eye, the girl could see her grandfather give a barely perceptible nod. Okay. The girl felt strangely elated. She unhooked the hose from the pump, thumbed in the combination on the pad. Okay, put it over here where I can put it under the nozzle. Okay, all right, here we go. As the girl filled the pot, the old woman picked her pack up and walked back to the road that ran by the station. It was all buckled and jumbled, lined by boarded up buildings. It had been a town center back in the day. The woman found a chunk of sidewalk that was more or less level, put her pack down, unhooked a cooking ring from the back, set it on the cement. Okay, it's full, the girl said. I'll help you carry it. They each picked up one side of the handle of the pot and carried it between the two of them across and put it down on the cooking ring, careful so the water wouldn't slosh out over the sides. The woman leaned down, turned a knob, and the cooking ring glowed red. It's sun-powered, the woman said. I charge it up, hang it on the back of the pack while I'm walking all day, and by nighttime, it's ready to go. Now, all I need is my special ingredient. The girl waited, expecting the woman to pull something out of her pack. But instead, the old woman turned and walked to the lot beside the station. It had been a parking lot back in the day, but now was just a jumble of rocks and dirt. The woman walked among the lot and she bent down, picked up a clod of dirt, threw it back down again, picked up another one, threw it back down again. The girl was right at her elbow. What are you looking for? Nothing grows here. It's really hard to get anything to grow. What is that? What do you have? This is just what I need to make a delicious pot of soup. A rock? A stone. You can't make soup out of a stone. Oh, well, we'll see. The woman strode back over to the pot where the water was starting to boil. There were two children that had come to the pump. The taller one was giving the girl's grandfather a token and a bucket to fill. The smaller child wandered over to where the woman was pulling something out of her pack by the pot of water on the cooking ring. Ah, here's my ladle, she said. She dusted off the stone, put it in the ladle, and lowered it down into the water. What are you making? The smaller child said. Well, I'm making stone soup. I'm making stone soup. I'm making stone soup, and we'll eat well tonight. The taller child had come over carrying the bucket that was full. Stone soup! The taller child grabbed his younger sibling by the shoulder, started pulling him away. I think it's going to be delicious, the girl said, feeling strangely protective. Well, I think it will be too, said the old woman. You know, fresh stone like this, oh, it's going to cook up with some flavor. In fact, it's already starting. You know, the only thing that would make it better is if we had just a few potatoes, the girl said. Grandpa and I just dug up some new ones. Potatoes, yeah, that would give it body. If we just had something to give it a little bit of color. My mama has corn, the smaller child said from where his taller sibling was pulling him across the road back down into the buildings. She has corn and I could, and they were gone. Well, soon the girl was sitting beside the old woman, cutting up potatoes and dropping them into the pot. They were sitting on chairs that her grandfather had brought out from the station. And he had hung some kerosene lamps up to shed some light out into the gathering darkness. And as the potatoes dropped into the pot and the steam rolled out, It was like they were in a little world, all to themselves. And then, from the edge of the circle, they heard, "See, Mama? See? There they are." It was the two children. They brought their mother back. Their mother was standing just on the edge of the light, looking in. What did you bring me here to see? What are they making? They're making stone soup. She's making, yep, that's right. Stone soup. I'm making stone soup. And all the children joined her. And we'll eat well tonight. Mama, can I bring my corn from supper? It's all we have. I know, Mama, but please. The taller child said, "Me too, Mama. Can I bring mine too, please?" Their mother's face was hard to read in the flickering shadow, but she watched the old woman stirring the soup, and finally she said, "All right." Yay! The two kids ran back across the road, and the mother turned to follow them, but wait a minute. It was the grandfather. Why don't you sit for a while? He had dragged a bench out from the station. It was sitting there right in the light of the cooking ring. You all live down in the old drugstore, don't you? He said. Yeah, the woman said. Slowly she walked around the edge, sat down on the bench, reached her hands out to the warmth where the cooking was going on. By the time the corn went into the pot, and it was 3 ears of it in the end, carefully husked and peeled, more people had gathered. As they watched the taller child help the younger child pour the kernels in a golden stream, people cheered. A few people scoffed, went away, but most people stayed. And many people had something that they could contribute to the soup. A handful of beans, a handful of barley, some gnarly carrots, a chunk of cured venison, a clutch of small, fierce peppers. Nobody had much, but everybody had something. And when the old one-eyed man who lived in what formerly had been the library, when he came, plunged his hands deep into the pockets of his baggy suit coat, pulled out with a magician's flourish 2 impossibly plump brown onions, everybody applauded. It was the most delicious soup anyone had ever tasted. Everybody said so. And how marvelous, how miraculous that it was made from a stone. Oh, and that's not all, the old woman said. She had kept the stone when the soup had all been eaten. Now this stone has been seasoned. Next batch, it's going to be even better. By then, night was full on and people started to go. They said their goodbyes, exchanging agreements that had been made while they were eating. The next day, a use of a generator, return for a bushel of apples, a repair of a coat in exchange for an hour spent splitting wood. Finally, everyone was gone. The grandfather and the girl offered the old woman a place to sleep inside the station, but no, I prefer to be out in the open air, she said. She unhooked her bedroll, started to lay it out by the still glowing cooking ring. After a whispered consultation, the grandfather helped the girl bring her own bedding out, and she laid it out by the woman. From inside the station, the grandfather could hear their voices rising and falling for some time, until finally they fell silent and slept under the blanket of glistening stars. When the dove gray of the morning started to feather the night sky, and the grandfather stepped outside, the old woman was already gone, packed up, On the road, he stepped closer to where the girl lay still in the deep, abandoned sleep of the young. She was lying on her back, arm flung out beside her. And he watched as the morning sun grew brighter and illuminated her face, her cheek turned toward her hand, the hand whose fingers were curled around the stone that had been left in her keeping.
Thank you, Anne, for actually bringing alive the subtle and deep meaning of Stone Soup. The story, set in a dystopian future, really moves us to the core and is an important story to be heard today. Thank you. Well, let's thank all of these storytellers: Ava, Abram, Rachel Ann Harding, Roopa, Mohan, and Anne Rutherford, and Nancy Wang. I know you've enjoyed this program as much as I have. A special thank you again to Jessica and all those who make this possible, and each one of you. The end is always so special. Makes me think of Jimmy Durante. Hello, Mrs. Calabash, wherever you are. Well, this is Laura Sims, and wherever you are, I hope you have had the most lovely evening and will enjoy the rest of the festival.